Hey there, friends. A little bit of an intro before we get into the main meat of the podcast. So, it is currently the 17th of June when I'm recording this little section here. But the podcast you're about to listen to was recorded a long, long time ago. And it was recorded at a busy time for me. And that busy time never let up. And it hasn't let up until today. And it still hasn't let up today. Because I am currently getting ready to go to America. With my family. So it's been a busy couple of weeks, been working a lot, been planning a lot, but also I've been knackered a lot. And as such, I have neglected the podcast, and I regret that, but also, this channel has always been something that we do for fun, and I didn't want it to, add to my stress levels. So I've neglected the podcast, and I feel bad for doing that, but also I don't think that I could have done it another way without just causing more stress. So this is the podcast that we recorded quite a while ago, so it might be a bit dated. Also, during the podcast, I was quite tired, so I apologize for my performance. John, as always, is on form. So, yeah, if you're listening to this and you're a little bit confused about anything, or if you're confused as to where the podcast has been for a while, it's because I've been super busy. And that's also why I haven't been doing any Wi-Fi Friends videos. That being said, I'm hoping to record some cool stuff while I'm out in Florida. Hopefully I can do a video or two out there. And also, we are currently in the last week of Arcade Crowd, which is a Let's Play channel that I do. Not the last week, the last month of Arcade Crowd. And we are putting out some really, really fun Let's Plays on that channel because it is ending. So I recommend, if you haven't already, go check out Arcade Crowd if you're looking for more camera action. And obviously, John, as we say in most podcasts, has one of the best Twitters in the whole Twitterverse. So, yeah. I apologize for the wait, and I apologize for the sleepiness of myself in this podcast, but hopefully you will enjoy it anyway. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Wi-Fi Friends with Cameron Morris and John Johnsick.
Howdy. Howdy.
Howdy, partner.
Yeah, I don't know what that was. I was gonna go for a little, wow, I'm gonna butcher this. I feel like it's Mississippi or Missouri State. It's a hottie toddy, which is like I don't know why they say it or it's a thing. It's just one of those random facts that I have in my brain. But for some reason, the words didn't want to come out.
Oh, well, sometimes you go for a bit and it just doesn't work.
9 times out of 10, all of my bits.
So how have you been, John? What's been up? What's been going on?
Man, I feel so boring. Because I feel like I've just been such an adult. Because it's just been like work.
Yeah.
And the worst part about it is so me, love of my life, Christina, we work at the same place.
Oh, cool.
Different aspects, but we work at the same company.
Yes.
She's been working mornings, I've been working nights.
Oof.
So literally, I come into work 2:00, she leaves work 2:00, and so we're like 2 ships passing in the night.
Yeah, you're just like, hey, hi, how's it going? Bye.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of sucks, man. That's not gonna be nice. I mean, it was a long schedule for a while where Jen and I were kind of like that, but now it's kind of evened out so that we do see each other a little bit more, and it's not fun. It's definitely not fun. Like for 3 years on and off, Jen and I did long distance because she'd come back in the summer, but for the majority of the year she'd be in uni in England. And that was really hard, but like, you've got like this situation where you're like, okay, we're doing long distance, so we make efforts to send each other letters and call each other and stuff. But when you're like living in the same place, yet you're never in there at the same time, it's this weird like, like, I'm sure we live together, but I haven't seen you for days.
Yeah, and then like it turns into this thing where like I get off work at 10:30 at night, and so go into bed, snuggle up, and then we start talking about our day, but she has work at 6:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
So it's like, it turns into this thing to where it's like us being together and talking is impacting her getting enough sleep she needs for work, but it's like, it's the only time we get to see each other.
Yeah. Man, it's awkward. Yeah. Oh, jeez, life, Yeah, I feel the same way this week. I don't know what it is. It's just like, I think I'm just like, I'm not like in a bad mood. I'm just like drained, Like a lot of shit has
Yeah,
been going on. Not, and I don't mean shit like bad shit. I just mean like a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff has been going on. I've had a lot of shifts. I've had, today's a day off, which is good, but I've had a lot of stuff on, a lot of work, and also, we've been like breakneck speed recording videos for Arcade Crowd. We think we did,
yeah, for that final
yeah.
month.
Yeah, yeah, which is really it's turned out, the recordings have turned out really good, but like, because obviously they come out at certain days, usually we record them, once every week, but we've just been doing them as fast as we can because I'm leaving the UK halfway through June to go on
Yeah,
holiday, and I go to Florida, so I can't exactly do them, throughout the month of June. So we've just been doing them as fast as possible, and we did like 3 recording sessions in the last couple of days. We did Friday, Sunday, and today, and now I'm just like totally out of bits. Like every comedic bone in my body is completely stretched out. Literally like stretching the deepest. Like, what jokes can I make? Like the last thing we did was we did a stream just earlier today, and I was dying. I was just like, I don't think there's anything left for me to say. I
yeah.
said all
That's
of
the
the
thing is
things.
that even especially being in a group setting,
Yes.
you'd think it's easier because you're a bunch of friends and but after a while, it just even in normal conversation, but especially when you're supposed to be this heightened version of
Mm,
yourself for the camera, it's
yeah.
just like you just run out of energy and like you almost yeah you just run like there's a meter of
Yeah.
funny
And
for the day and you've used up all of it for like a whole month.
it is. I think that the way kind of my perspective on it, and I don't know if this is what it's like with everyone, but this is just how I feel and how sometimes the guys have talked about feeling, is like the thing with recording videos and with trying to be that kind of entertaining, like when we do this, there's always the option that we're going to be funny, but we're also just talking and catching up as friends. Whereas with Arcade Crowd, there was always the promise that we would try to be funny, and I think the problem is that when you're trying to stick to one tone, when you're locked in on that tone, it's hard to keep that up. Because like
Yeah,
if I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours, because we would be funny sometimes, but we would like kind of lull, and maybe we'd get deep, and maybe we would chat and stuff. You could like space out the trying to be funny, but
yeah,
when the complete focus, the only thing you're always thinking about is being funny, it's just like, oh my god. It's like, I don't do improv. I've never done improv on stage, but like, if you do improv, you really only do it for like an hour or 2 hours. But we've just been, you just keep going and going and going, and you just like,
yeah,
I just want to stop. I just want to be serious for a minute, because I'm a pretty silly guy. Like, I like being funny, I like being silly, but you can't keep it up. And like, there's this weird like after, like it's like this weird like shock of after when you're done. Whenever we finish a recording session, even like, especially if it went really well, where you just kind of sit there and you go, "What the hell just happened?" Like, you
yeah,
record 5 videos, and like by the end of it, like I've got like JT's drink all over my shirt. I'm dripping
yeah,
wet. I've got blue hair and a blue beard. I'm just like completely zoinked. I don't know, like I've been crying, laughing, but also I'm just tired and I want to go to sleep. And there's like sweets and energy drink packets all over the place. And I'm just like, it's like waking up from like a crazy blackout session. It's just like, what
yeah.
happened? And
It's like
like,
an episode of well, it's not an episode of The Hangover, but it's like one of the Hangover movies. You're just like, what
yeah.
happened last?
Yeah, and
Uh,
and like I don't drink either, so it's like the closest thing I get to like I don't drink and I don't do drugs, so I feel like it's the closest thing I ever get to getting high, and like it very much is
and
like
you don't have fun.
it is like in the moment I really really enjoy recording, and I love watching the videos back because it reminds me how much fun we had. Um, but it is like, those like afternoons or evenings after recording, I sometimes feel like this, where I'm just like, oh, I'm not tired. Like, I don't want to go to bed, but I'm just like all, I guess, bitted out. Like I've got no more
Yeah,
bits to give. Um, but it's fun. It's interesting, and like I appreciate that I have other stuff like this, and like Let's Play Legend of Korra, um, where I'm able to just kind of not have to be on, all the time.
Yeah.
I love being on, but it's not something I can do like 24/7. I don't think it's something
Yeah,
anyone would do
nobody can do
24/7.
that. Yeah.
Like if I'm trying to think of like people who are like famous, like known for being like always on,
I
and
mean, the sad answer is Robin Williams.
I was gonna say the exact same thing. Like Robin Williams is the only person I know who is like that, and maybe Jim
Well,
Carrey.
and then Jim Carrey, and both of them they've seen the effects of that.
Yes, yeah. And I think that like it could be argued that Jim Carrey got through it. Some people say that he's kind of delusional now, but some people
Well, he
say
finally went off.
yeah,
That's the only thing. He just actually turned it off for once.
yeah. I like that. Again, I don't know if Jim Carrey's okay, honestly, but like I
Yeah.
watched. Do you know Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee? Do you know that TV show?
Yeah, the
Larry
Seinfeld. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched an episode with Jim Carrey, and as much as Jim Carrey seems a little bit like, spacey now, and like he says things and I'm just like, I don't understand, he seems happy, which I feel like
Yeah.
is good. Like even if he's like believes these things that I don't, I still like that he's happy. And like he did this bit where him and Seinfeld were in like a coffee shop, and he was like, I just like to entertain myself now, like just like I'm an audience for myself. And Seinfeld's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, look, I'm gonna put my coffee on the floor, get up on the table, and see if I can drop the sweetener in. And he just has so much fun doing this like a meaningless thing. But I'm like, I think he found a way to like, I don't know, become his own audience, and then kind of
Yeah.
entertain himself, which is good. And then you've got the other side, which is Robin Williams, which is if you don't get through it and you let it get to you. Obviously that didn't end well, but yeah, I don't know. I like it. I do like. I wouldn't,
Yeah.
I was gonna say I wouldn't give it up, but obviously that's a little bit weird to say now that we're ending it. But yeah, I definitely, in some form or another, will always like want to do this improv type stuff. I just think. I don't know. It's like, I don't know if people listening watched Jack's video where he explained it, because I think that's the best explanation of it. And the bit I resonated with most was when he talks about how like it's the older we get and the more responsibilities we get, the harder it gets to do. And it's not because it's like we're growing out of it. I don't think we've become any less childish. I think we just still make silly bits and stuff. It's just that, you now have to deal with the ramifications of after and before the recording, and like,
Yeah.
I can't, I've been doing it now so that I've been going to work and then going straight from work to Jack's and recording, and then waking up in the morning and going to work again, and it just leaves me in this weird, like, like I'm just like, and people go, oh, you're just sitting down making jokes, but it's like, yeah, I know, there's a lot fucking more exhausting things to do, but it does like spin me out sometimes, and I feel like, I don't know, I gotta find a way to do it that isn't so much,
The thing is that you don't have the day job, and you find a way. You are able to make content.
Yeah.
But even like people like that, like wow, we went off on a super hard tangent here,
Yeah, we
but I
did.
think it's an important conversation to have. So, the Kind of Funny guys, they talk about how like, yes, their job isn't the most, like it's them talking and goofing around and doing that, but it is like just exhausted, like emotionally exhausting. And like there are days where, sometimes you're egging on your friend or whatever, and you're messing with each other, and it's like you're just not in the mood for it. They created like,
Yeah.
they have like a safe word or whatever for when like they're going too far. When it's like, hey, I'm having a rough day, I just don't need us giving each other shit right now.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. I mean, there are times. I mean, I'm sure he doesn't mind me talking about it, but like Jack Thomas is a type of guy who super like positive guy, but he has days, whether it's due to mental health or just tiredness or whatever, where he feels anxious, and if the recording date has been set and everyone's promised to turn up, then Jack Thomas will turn up. And you don't be able to tell it. Like if I show you the videos where he's anxious, you won't be able to like point them out, unless like you really get to know him. But like he'll turn up to recordings, we'll joke and joke and joke, and then we'll turn the mics off, and he'll just be like, "Oh fuck, man!" Like he just doesn't feel good about the day. And then he watches the videos back, and he's like, he's like, the videos seem fine, but like all he can think about is how anxious he was. And like I don't get it to that extent, but I definitely think every single one of us get to a point where, sometimes we're putting a face on, or we're pretending to be a certain mood, and that just makes the whole experience not fun. You want to do it when you want to do it, and then when you
Yeah.
don't want to do it, it's the last thing you want to do. It's weird how these things can happen. Like I think of like people who perform, like my friend Tom is a musician, and I always talk to him. Like to the point where he's like, you're obsessing about this and you've never, like he thinks I'm planning to become a musician. I ask him about this so much, but I don't actually want to be a musician. It just freaks me out. I always talk to him about his voice and like losing his voice or getting sick or getting like a bad throat or singing too much. And like, I'm like, if that goes, what do you do? Like if you book a gig 2 months, 3 months, like he's got a gig booked for a year in advance, like, and then it gets to that date and your voice is gone. Like, what do you do? And he's just like, I've just never, come across that. He treats his voice well. He makes sure to eat or not eat things. But it's like that, but with kind of mood with comedy.
Yeah.
Like if you get to the day where you're supposed to be funny and you're not in a funny mood, you just gotta suck it up and try to be funny.
Yeah.
And it almost never comes across as funny as you want it to be because you're just not in the mood. You're not doing because you see, like, sometimes if you watch Man on Fire videos, I implore you to watch the people who aren't talking, because sometimes if they're in good moods, they're like looking and watching and listening to the other bits, waiting to jump in. But if they're not, they're just staring off. Like
They're just staring off in the distance.
There are times where I've just been like, and this is quite unprofessional, but like I've just been like looking at my phone sometimes if I'm in a really bad mood. It's happened like only once or twice.
You're the worst. Every time I watch these videos, I'm always like, Cameron looks the most disinterested in the world. He doesn't care.
But it's it's fun to kind of just talk about these things, and because you never see that side of it. We never want to make a whole Let's Play where we talk about how sometimes it's hard to make Let's Plays. I don't know.
You never want to hear someone like talk about how hard it, especially in a job like that where people would love and want to be in that position.
Yeah.
You never want to be like, oh hey, like it's super hard to do, and people are like, you just sit there and play video games and you're funny, and it's like, well, there's more to it than that.
I think it's a lot easier as well because it's not something that we get money from, really.
Yeah.
Like if we were at a point where our Patreon was earning enough that we could take a wage or a salary or take any amount of monetary gain from doing it, then maybe I'd be like, yeah, it's hard, but we do it for the fans, blah blah blah. But because all the money we get goes back into it and keeps it running, and we don't actually get paid, we just do it for fun and to do it. It's a lot easier for me to complain, I think. Because it's like complaining about a hobby. But I don't know.
So what? Cameron Morris.
Yes.
Is your current fave?
Ooh.
Look at that. See, I had segue abilities right there.
I want to talk about first how we have had this episode planned for way, way longer than we expected to have it planned. So
God.
Some things might be out of date and some things might be like, oh, I was so passionate about it and now I've completely forgotten. So I apologize if this is a bit rocky. It's like a combination of that and then also the fact that my energy is a bit low. But I am, however, still excited about my current fave, luckily. So, let's talk about Solo. John, have you seen Solo? I don't suppose you have.
I have not seen Solo yet.
That's fair. You have a busy life. You can't go see every movie, unlike me, where I literally work in a place where they show every movie. I'm currently drinking out of my Lando Calrissian cinema mug, which is very cool.
Nice.
It's got Childish Gambino wearing a stylish cape on the top of it. Solo was so fun. Solo was super, super fun. A lot of people you might see online talking about how fun it was, and a lot of people you might see online talking about why did we need it? Did we need a Han Solo movie? And I'm inclined to agree with both those types of people. I never thought we needed a Han Solo movie, really, and I don't think this movie answers the question, why do we need a Han Solo movie? But it more just presents a new case study, which is, why don't we need a Han Solo movie? Like, it doesn't go, hey, it doesn't prove that we were in desperate need of a Han Solo movie. But what it does, it goes, hey, we know we don't need this movie, but why don't we do it anyway? Because it'll be fun. Like,
Yeah,
it never felt at any point during this film that the movie was trying to get us to go, oh, I get it now, you know? Like, no, it never felt like the movie took a second. It was like, oh, if we didn't have this movie, we wouldn't be able to appreciate the Han Solo character. What it does is it takes a character that everyone knows everything about and just kind of goes, hey, wouldn't it be cool to see that stuff, you know? Like,
yeah,
it feels to me like a prequel comic. If you've ever read
yeah,
any comics that are prequels to not just Star Wars, but the Power Rangers comics are really good, or some of them. The Transformers comics are pretty good. A lot of times comics have like low stakes because especially if they're in canon, they can't do big stories because that's reserved for TV shows and movies, you know? So what happens with these spin-off comics like Power Rangers meeting the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is you go, oh, wouldn't it be cool to see these characters we know in a fun situation? And for Han Solo, we already know which fun situations it would be cool to see him in because he talks about them in the original trilogy. You know, he won't
yeah,
shut up about all the stuff he's done. So we just get to see him do all this stuff. And it's nothing mind-blowing. There's no, like, oh my god, like, I didn't know that about Han Solo moments. Like, you definitely learn more stuff about him, but the film doesn't treat it like it's this new amazing things. Most of the stuff you learn about Han Solo is pulled from the old expanded universe, which was, you know, taken out of canon, which I really appreciate. A lot of people saying it's unoriginal, but I think, well, you know, if it's already been done right, why change it? You know, why not just bring
yeah.
stuff back? Like
Well, it's just adapting. It's just like adapting any like book or comic book story. Like
yeah,
you're just changing things here and there, but you're just taking something that's already out in the ether and making it in a different format.
yeah, 100%. I think that like one of the best things about the sequel trilogy, um, Kylo Ren was inspired by an old universe character who was Han Solo's son, who turned evil, called gosh, I wish I remembered his name.
Wasn't he Ben? Didn't he have the same?
I don't know if his name was Ben.
Because they had like twins, right? They had like a boy and a girl.
Yeah, and the girl was good
Yeah.
and the boy was bad. But
Yes.
but yeah. Anyway, but anyway, my point is that, you know, that character of of Kylo Ren or Ben Solo was very much inspired by that Legends character, but it actually ended up, you know, being a really cool thing. I think Kylo Ren is a really, really awesome villain, and the reason is because he takes what worked in the past and kind of adds to it and changes it and modifies it. And I do the same with the Han Solo movie, really, not to such a crazy extent than with Kylo Ren. Like, they kind of just take little things from his past that are no longer canon, canonize them, but also recontextualize them. So like for those who don't know, in the old Legends, Han Solo grew up on like the streets of Corellia as like a poor kid, and he does in this movie, but they kind of change the reasons, they change who his parents are. But again, like, my main point about this, I don't want to get into like the specific plot details, I just want to talk about tone. And kind of my bigger point, not just about Solo, but about these fun movies like Solo and like the Justice League, I think, is another example of this, where the movie's intention was so simple that people almost had to act like it was trying to do something and then failed at doing it. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, they make it seem like the movie was trying to do more than it actually was.
Yeah, and then they criticize it for that. You know?
Yeah.
Like I've seen people being like, Solo, you know, didn't tell us anything we didn't already know with Han Solo, therefore it failed. And I'm like, if you watch the movie, you don't get the sense that they're trying to tell us stuff about Han Solo. Like, they do this cheeky thing with with Han Solo winning the Millennium Falcon, right? So we all know the story that he won it in a card game. And they obviously they're going to show that in the movie. It's the Han Solo movie, and it was one of the few things he talks about. So they're going to show that in the movie, but they do it in a way that subverts expectations. but not so dramatically that you're like, wow. They just do it in a way that's like, oh, that's cool. I didn't think it was going to go down like that. It's like, and the whole movie's filled with these moments where you go, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. Oh, the castle run was that? Oh, that's cool. I didn't know what the
I
castle
think
run was.
what this movie does very well, not that I've seen it, but just from hearing you talk about it. And I have a couple questions. But it's like any good wrestling match.
Ooh.
The whole idea behind a wrestling match, is that ideally you go into a match, you know John Cena's moves.
Yes.
You know, like, his big moves, what he does, and how he sets up his finishers. That's not the point of the match. The point of the match is to take your expectations going into it. You're like, all right, I know these two wrestlers. I know what they do. I know how they do what they do.
Yeah.
It's about setting up those expectations, subverting them, and then eventually giving you what you want anyway.
Yeah, 100%.
So the whole idea going into Solo is not like, oh, how are they going to change my conception of what Han Solo is and what the universe is. It's like, hey, here are things you already know going in. We're going to give you that, kind of, but also give you it anyway.
Yeah, it very much, I think, funny enough, you haven't seen the movie, but you kind of nail it in the way that it's like, they do, very much that thing where they go, hey, those things you know are going to happen? Maybe they won't happen, but obviously, yeah, they will happen. So it's like, they're going to happen, but first we're going to tease you a little bit and change it around a little bit.
So, 2 questions.
Okay, hit me.
1, does it do that thing that I hate the prequels do, where it literally feels like the movie stops and it goes, hey, here's a thing that you know is important later, and we're showing it to you now to show you that, like, hey, remember this thing it is important later? Okay, the dice. The dice. It's the main thing I'm asking.
The dice
about. Do they, like, literally, hey guys, look at that dice right there? Like, that's what I imagine.
The dice are a big culprit for that. The dice don't have any...
Yeah.
You could, Cameron Morris could pull meaning from the dice pertaining to this movie, in the sense that Han Solo entrusts the dice to someone, and then they kind of go on a journey. But ultimately, I think that the dice were very much trying to call back to the sequel trilogy, and to an extent the original trilogy, because yes, they are in the original trilogy, but they never really made a plot point. They were just kind of a design choice. So I do think the dice are that, but they you can pull meaning from them staying within this within this movie.
It's not as egregious as I'm making it sound. So.
Yeah, it's kind of like
or is it egregious?
Like, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have done it, honestly. I think I would have just had the dice there and not made a point of them. But they do. What I'm trying to say is they make an attempt to tie it to the film specifically, not the wider universe, but just the film, which I appreciate the attempt, but ultimately I don't think that the attempt works well enough to justify having the dice in the movie. But I appreciate the attempt. There is, sense. However, one specifically in instances in this movie that very much, and it's very rare, but very much do go, ugh. Like literally, like, feels like someone hit the brakes on a car just to go, like, remember Star Wars, and then the car drives off. And do you mind if I just spoil one line? It's not going to spoil the movie. It's not.
Okay, if it's not going to be any sort of spoiler, then yeah.
No. So I will say one thing, right? Do you know that Lando's in the movie?
What? Donald Glover's in this movie?
Lando Calrissian is in the movie. For those who don't know, if anyone doesn't know, Lando Calrissian in the original trilogy
It's been every trailer and TV spot. So.
Yeah. In the original trilogy, Lando Calrissian is a character who is the chief administrator at a mining colony, right? There is a line in this movie, in Solo, it's my least favorite line in the whole movie, where it cuts to Lando Calrissian, and for no particular reason, it's kind of relevant, but not really, he just says the words, "I hate mining colonies." and you're supposed to go, ha ha, it's funny because he becomes the
Uh,
administrator. And it really does not fit, not just Lando's character in the wider universe, but it doesn't fit his character in this movie because he has no reason to hate them. They never give him like fun, cheeky, like, oh, you know, like something happened in a mining colony. It would make more sense to me if the line was, ooh, I had a bad experience at a mining colony once, you know? And then that's foreshadowing his bad experience at the future mining colony with Darth Vader. But it's not that. He just says the words, I hate mining colonies. And it's one of the only points in the movie where I was like, did you need that? You know? Like,
yeah, so that's what I consider egregious.
yeah, that was egregious. The dice are a little bit pointless, but they do make an attempt. And there are one or two things. The bits that I do really like about this movie that I think that people aren't talking about enough. There are people talking about it, and there are reviewers who are really shining a light on this. But Chewie is so good in this movie. Not in a way that, again, is like, oh, I didn't know that about Chewie. Like, he doesn't not act. He acts like Chewie. He doesn't act like a different character. He's not more edgy or whatever. He's still
He's just
Chewie.
given more time to
He's
be
given
Chewie.
100%. So much more time. This movie does this thing, which I love it when movies do this, because I don't think they do it enough. Again, movies can work without doing this. Hundreds of movies have. But where they pick a character and they go, this movie is from this character's point of view, so you will never know anything that this character doesn't know. And it does that with Han Solo. So the majority of this movie, it does get away from me a little bit at the end, but for the majority of this movie, I'd say about 95% of the movie, Han Solo is in every single scene because you're following him. So everything you know, Han Solo knows. Like, you never learn anything really without Han Solo learning it at the same time as you. Because of that, you spend a lot of time with Chewie, because there are scenes where, you know, maybe they would have focused on a different character, but because Han Solo and Chewie are hanging out all the time, you're always with Chewie as well as Han Solo, and you really get to know him in a way that I don't think we've had a chance before. Someone pointed out on YouTube, there's a YouTuber I like a lot, I disagree with him a lot, but I also like him a lot, called the Cosmonaut. Oh, what's his name? I should know his name. Something Cosmonaut. He's like a reviewer / like let's player. But he talked about how, like, Chewie is often depicted as, like, Han Solo's pet. And it's really, like, annoying because, like, Chewie's a character. Like, he's a dude. He's a person. You know, he's got, like, wants and needs. But a lot of times in extended universe stuff, and then sometimes even in some of the movies, he's just treated as, like, Han Solo's pet. Like, he just walks around next to Han Solo and, like, he growls. But in this movie, you really get a sense of, like, what he wants and, like, his like, motivations and everything, and he steals the show. Like, I thought Lando was going to kill it, and Lando does kill it, but Chewie is the best character in this movie, and I really appreciate that they kind of give Chewie his due. Like, it feels just as much a Chewie movie as it does a Solo movie.
Hashtag free Chewie, man.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, Chewie's...
Yeah.
Chewie is so... I mean, I've always liked Chewie, but, like, in this movie, I don't know. It takes what you like about Chewie and it kind of stretches it out and it explores it, and it goes, well, we know you love this about him. Let's see how far we can push that, and let's see how much. And I would recommend people who are even casual Star Wars fans, just give it a watch with the mindset being like, you know, hey, this will be a fun Star Wars romp. It's nothing serious.
Last question.
Go ahead.
Does this movie seem like a type of movie that needs 2 more?
No. I really don't think
because he's been signed on for 3 movies.
Right. I've seen a lot of stuff like this. I don't understand it because, you know, sometimes you see news and it contradicts the movie you just saw. Like, I mean, this happened with Rogue One. The Felicity Jones got signed on for a sequel to Rogue One, and then we watched the movie Rogue One, and we were like, oh, okay. Like, so I don't understand the industry fully. But this movie ends in a way that does not set up a sequel for Han Solo, and people have been saying that it does, but it doesn't. For me, watching it, this is just my interpretation of the ending. This movie ends setting up future Star Wars spin-off movies. Because at the end of this movie, I feel like Han Solo is kind of... He's had his adventure. There is literally... This might be spoiling the movie, but there's literally nothing more that they can make a movie about. Like, everything in the original trilogy and in the sequel trilogy that Han Solo ever talks about doing, all the little, like, lines that are like like clearly references to a past that we've never seen. All of it is in this movie. There is nothing like the line where he goes, oh, I won the Millennium Falcon off you. The line where he says, I did the castle run in 12 parsecs. Like, everything he's ever mentioned is all crammed into this movie. So a sequel would have to be, I guess just getting him to Tatooine. But then, there's like 10 years between the events of this movie and A New Hope. So you would have to, like, I don't know, fill it with like new original stuff, which I guess you could do. But people are...
And it also doesn't say two more Han Solo movies.
That's my point.
So he could show up in a Leia spin-off. He could show up in, heck, a Chewie or a Lando movie. Or
I think that they've signed him on. If they have signed him on, I don't know the specifics of the deal. I think they've signed him on because they want to really dig into this aspect of the universe, this time period between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, based on, the fact that we're getting a Kenobi movie, but also the fact that we're getting a Boba Fett movie, and the fact that the end of this movie sets up a whole gauntlet of movies that you could do. Like, this movie, I'm not going to spoil it for you, John, but there is a tag at the end of this movie that is like, whoa, and that's what people are using to be like, this is the Han Solo sequel. But, again, without spoiling it, because it's just really hard to talk about without spoiling it, but the tag at the end of this movie, if that is a tag for a Solo sequel, it doesn't make any sense based on what we know about Han Solo in the original trilogy. And I'll explain that in a future episode. But that's basically my point. However, it does make sense to put it in this Han Solo movie because people are going to see it, and then when a movie comes out that then follows up on that tag, we can go, oh, this is cool because this was started in Han Solo. It's very much like how at the end of Iron Man 2, Coulson turns up in New Mexico and he sees the hammer. It's like that. It's not, that wasn't setting up Iron Man 3, that was setting up Thor, Like,
yeah, okay.
It's kind of that. But people are interpreting it as like a Han Solo sequel, which it doesn't really make sense for who and what happens. Really hard to talk without spoilers. But my point being is, if they have signed him on, I wouldn't be surprised if he shows up in the Boba Fett movie. That's the big one that I think he's going to show up in if he does. Because Boba Fett and Han Solo have a history together, clearly, because Boba Fett is, in Empire Strikes Back talks about him. So it would make sense if I was making the Boba Fett movie to be like, hey, can we make sure that, Alden, what's his name? Young Han Solo actor.
Yeah, Alden Ehrenreich, I believe.
Yeah, can we make sure that he's available to be in my Boba Fett movie? Because it would be really cool if we could cross those, streams, and have...
Yeah.
But I don't know. I really, 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 really wouldn't be excited for a sequel to this movie just because it kind of... I don't know. It feels like a fun romp. It doesn't feel like the start of like a trilogy. It really doesn't feel like the start of like a trilogy. But I would definitely see it just because of Star Wars. But yeah, that's kind of...
And I just can't imagine seeing the title Solo 2.
Yeah.
Because that just doesn't sound good.
Yeah, it does, I don't know, it just doesn't, what, like, I can't really explain it, but it just doesn't feel like the beginning of a franchise. It feels like Rogue One. It very much feels like Rogue One in the sense that you're going, wow, this was a cool Star Wars story. Like, I feel like, there's Rian Johnson is getting a trilogy of movies. He's getting 3 movies to do that aren't set on the Skywalker saga. It's a separate Star Wars movie franchise. I don't think they're going to have the tagline Star Wars story because the idea is that's a trilogy. I think they're going to be Star Wars movies, but they're not going to be Star Wars stories. Whereas I feel like every time you see a movie that says a Star Wars story, the idea is this individual one little, short story that happened in the universe. But again, this is just...
they're like one-shots, it feels like.
Yeah. So overall, I want to say Solo was really fun. Was it the best Star Wars movie ever? No, but don't go into it thinking it's going to be the best Star Wars movie. I don't think it has a lot of the problems that people say it has, because a lot of people are just, like, giving it, like, unrealistic intentions, I guess is the best way to put it. But I will say things to look out for that I really enjoyed was Chewie. I mean, Lando obviously is really cool. But also, what was really cool is I like what they did with cinematography. They take this weird, like, interesting take where they go, hey, what if we, like, you know, did interesting creative choices with the lighting in a Star Wars movie, whereas usually in Star Wars movies, it's just kind of, everything is lit fine.
Yeah, it's space.
Yeah. So check it out. It's a good fun romp. What is your current fave this week, friend?
So I'm going a little different than I usually do. I'm going music wise.
Oh,
Because I don't think I talk a lot about like music that I listen to or music taste and stuff like that. Um so there's this Kyle, who's this rapper, released an album called Little Light of Mine, which I've
okay.
been loving.
Okay.
And I listened to it on Spotify. I'm very picky when it comes to like albums.
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
Because for me, especially with like rap music, but see a lot of it in just mainstream music in general. For some reason, artists think, oh, if I put like 6 singles together, that's an album. And that's just not how my brain is wired.
No, yeah, I agree with
For
you.
me, like, there needs to be a reason. Why are these songs together? Why are they in this order? Do they all have a theme, or do they all tell a general story or message or something like that? There needs to be a reason.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that even if it's not a concept album with this like through plot storyline, you still need to put thought as to why the songs did or didn't make it onto the album. I think that like even
Yeah.
even
And so what I love
artists.
about this album is that
Sorry, I think it just
you guys,
blanked out and we interrupt each other. I was just gonna say even artists who like they do that where they just make a bunch of songs. Good ones still think about the flow of the album and how each song will move into the next, even if it wasn't written as an album. And I think I agree with you there. I appreciate that.
yeah. And so what I like about this album is that it tells like the story of, Kyle, the rapper,
Okay.
who is, dealing with, his conscience,
Okay.
who is like, another, I believe it's Loyachi, who is like voicing his conscience. Um, and
Okay.
one of my favorite lines in it, is he's like, my conscience, like Jiminy Cricket? And he's like, yes, like Jiminy Cricket, you Disney ass motherfucker. But it's this like nice story, like, well, not, yeah, story kind of, about like this guy who's trying to deal with the public persona of like, how can I be like his last album, I think it was called like Super Duper Kyle.
Okay.
And it was very energetic, very high energy, very happy. And he's like, how can I be like this guy who's like Super Duper Kyle, who's like super happy and excited all the time, when that's not how I am personally,
It was
and
all
how I'm
tied into what
dealing
we
with a
talked
lot of,
about.
yeah, exactly. And so the album's about like, hey, it's okay to have ups and downs, and like
Mm.
life is about like, you know, dealing with like your emotions, and like dealing with like sadness and happiness are both like two sides of the same coin, whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
I like that stuff.
and so it's like this really great, like almost kind of a message, even though some of the songs and lyrics are kind of like, a little messed up, but it still like has something that's just resonated, and I thought was just like really great.
That's cool. That's cool. What type of rapping is it then? Is it like I don't know. Rapping is one of those things where it's like lots of different, like this trap and stuff, and you can get like, or is it just kind of the
Yeah, so it's
classic? Like,
not like party rap. It's like kind of a mixture of like there's like singing portions and stuff like
mm,
that, and but there are some portions that are more like I'd say low energy, not very super high energy. It's more about like the lyrics and like the actual like actually rhyming.
yeah,
Um, and it's very kind of it has a bounce and a rhythm to it. Like just his voice has like a very specific like kind of way that it goes kind of like back and forth.
I like that. I like it when some of my favorite rap artists they treat their voice not just as words but also as instruments. So it's
Yeah.
like the way that they say things can almost add to the melody and add to the
Yeah,
kind of
that's what I love
the
about
beat.
Chance the Rapper, because like a
Yeah.
lot of his like he has such a distinct voice, especially like older Chance. Newer Chance still has it, but like older Chance especially, like you knew a Chance song and his voice just made the song so different than everybody else's.
Mm.
It's like someone else could do the song and it wouldn't be the same because it didn't have his same weird like accentuations and mannerisms and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's yeah,
And then,
that's interesting.
yeah, so, and then the other thing is weird. It's like this weird. So I just was like listening to some music on like YouTube or whatever, like doing other stuff. And like I randomly see like recommended videos. It's like this ukulele cover of a song that I was listening to.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, this is interesting, whatever. So I like click on it. And then like on the right hand side is 50 different channels of people who only do ukulele covers of songs.
Okay.
And it's this interesting thing of like back in the day, which is weird because those aren't words I really should use. But back in the infancy of YouTube, I'll say,
Okay.
YouTube was very broad.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
And as it's gotten bigger and bigger, like it's become way more niche. And and you realize that there's whole communities on YouTube that you were just not aware of or not a part of or did not know existed.
Yeah.
So I did not know that there was a ukulele cover community and group of like a large amount of people who like this is all they do.
Yeah, I kind of love that about YouTube. I kind of love that there is not really anything that is niche anymore.
Yeah.
You know, it's mental that like pretty much anything that you're into, there will be this community behind it. Not just one channel, but like a whole community around it. What is it about ukuleles though specifically that has been like interesting you though? Like, is
I
it
think
the
it's
simplicity of it?
it's the simplicity of it, yeah, and it's usually like quirky looking like girls and boys who just like or just have like nice like sweet simple voices.
Yeah.
Like it's not too high energy. They're not really trying much. It's just very soothing and calm.
I kind of get what you're saying. I like that.
Yeah.
It's. I think I heard someone describe it as twee once. Like
Mm.
it's kind of a word to catch it. It's like kind of the style, the music, but also like the visual style of like it's very soft. You know.
Yeah.
I
And
like
it's
that.
usually just someone sitting on like a bed in front of
Yeah.
their wall that has like all this quirky stuff behind them, just singing like a song.
Yeah, there was a guy I followed for quite a while called Keith David, I think. Not Keith David as in Keith David. I mean
I
Keith
was gonna
David.
say Keith David, acclaimed actor.
No, not the voice actor. Um, he's just he. I think it's Keith Davis or something. It was like one of those names where it's like so close to something that you
Yeah.
know already. But he just does ukulele covers of every single song that they ever did on Adventure Time, and like he wouldn't have a regular upload schedule. He would literally, you would only upload a video if on the new episode of Adventure Time there was a song, because Adventure Time isn't one of those like shows where there's a scheduled song. It's not like Phineas and Ferb where every episode needs to have a song.
Yeah.
It's just every so often Adventure Time they'll have a song in an episode. And if there was, the next day that Keith would be up with a ukulele cover of it. And it was really
That's
fun because,
really,
like,
I don't know why that's so cool.
it is. They would go, like, whole seasons. And, like, Keith would be gone. And you wouldn't see him. And then all of a sudden, they
And
would
then
upload a
just when
video.
you need him most.
And it got to the point where I fell off Adventure Time, not because I didn't like it anymore, but just because sometimes you just stop watching shows, you forget to like keep up with
Oh
them.
yeah.
But I would still always watch his videos, so like there was a bunch of songs that I only know his version of.
Yeah. Well, that's
So,
like a weird thing I have with like Steven Universe. I
okay.
always listen to the songs, but I have not watched that. Like I started it and then I just kind of stopped and forgot about it. But I always like listen to the songs whenever because they're just so good.
Yeah. I like that. I think yeah, there is something really about the ukulele. I really like this artist I've been following for ages and ages called Dodie. Do you know Dodie?
Yeah, did
YouTube.
she do that really sad song?
She's done a couple of sad songs. She's really good
Okay,
with sad songs.
I was gonna say, I think you probably shared it. It was like around like one of the school shootings. I think.
Oh, she did the Aria on the I can never
Ariana
pronounce her
Grande.
name. That's the one.
Ariana Grande.
When an explosion happened at one of her concerts, she wrote like a poem / song about it, and she shared that. And it's really, 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 really good.
Yeah, I saw that one.
But she's a fantastic artist. She's really, really like because she's a big YouTube presence as well. She's a big vlogging channel. and she talks a lot about dealing with depression and anxiety. But it's like one of those things where, I apologize if this comes across as like, offensive or but like you see someone who struggles so much, and she's very vocal about it. She's very open about all her struggles, yet makes such amazing, like all seemingly effortless art, but obviously it's not effortless, but it comes across as like it just comes because she does it so frequently. It's crazy, like when you see someone like that who like has such intense struggles, but also has such insane, crazy creative and like the drive and work. It's mad, and it blows me away when you see people like that. Like, and she's one of those people. But again, like she does so many cool, interesting things with a ukulele, because you see it as an instrument that's just like, oh yeah, it's just in the background, It's like one of those like backup instruments. But like Jack Johnson, Dodie Clark, there's a bunch of people who use ukuleles in like really interesting, fun ways. And like you said, like it's just a soft, nice instrument. I like the setup though that you did, where it's like they're sitting in the bed and there's like stuff behind them, like posters.
Yeah, like that's 9 times out of 10. That's always a video.
Yeah, I like the ones where they've got fairy lights. There's a lot
yeah,
you
gotta have the fairy lights.
There's actually fairy lights in my room now because of videos like that. Because I was like, oh, that's a nice aesthetic. I like that.
Yeah, it's a great aesthetic.
Do you have any other faves this week?
I mean, I've been playing Pokemon Quest on the Switch. I don't have much to say about it. It's fun. It's fun. It's like a mobile game.
Yeah.
Even down to the fact that like you have a certain amount of energy.
Oh yeah.
And it renews over time, which is great though, because it's just a game that you pop in, you jump in, you do some Pokemon. You have like a team of Pokemon. And they all like, you go to these different areas and you fight other Pokemon and you just kind of collect items along the way, and then you cook food to get more Pokemon to come to your camp.
Yeah, that's cool.
Very simple, very fun. And then you just level up your Pokemon and all that stuff. So it's like, it's great. I just pop in, all I have to do is tap the screen for the attacks, and that's it.
Oh, nice.
So it's just something that I can just kind of turn on. All right, I used up all my energy. Cool. I'm not really like too worried about it.
Yeah.
I'll just wait another couple of days when I turn it back on again.
I like that. I like the idea of having just like a little game that you could just play for like 10 minutes a day.
Yeah, especially like just with the amount of time that I have. I just don't have the time for these giant, expansive 150-hour video games that the industry wants to throw at me all the time. I mean, they don't throw at me. If they did, hey, I'll take some review copies, guys. Send them my way.
Yeah, well, that's another cool thing. Pokemon Quest is free, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's dope. I think it's actually coming out for mobile next month. Like, it's actually
that would
it
make
is actually
sense.
Another. It is a mobile game as well as being a Switch game, which is kind of a cool idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like the kind of variety you had this week.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to not say the same shit every time we turn on a podcast. But I think what's good is that, as we mentioned earlier, there a lot more time passed between the last podcast and this one.
Yeah.
So it's not just like, I'm still watching Vampire Diaries, which I finally finished it. It's finally done.
Oh, fantastic.
But can I tell you the conundrum we're facing, Cameron Morris?
Please do.
Before we get on to the topics.
Okay.
We watch all 8 seasons of the Vampire Diaries.
Yes.
Amazing show. Emotional. Very good. I still highly recommend it, even though it does sometimes have CW bullshit in it. The problem is that CW announces their new lineup.
Okay.
There's going to be a show that is set in that universe.
The Vampire Diaries universe.
The Vampire Diaries universe. That's a spin-off of the Vampire Diaries and another show.
Oh.
That was originally a spin-off of Vampire Diaries.
But is not any longer a spin-off.
So that shows, basically there's Vampire Diaries, then like 3 seasons in, they had a spin-off called The Originals.
Oh, okay.
Think of like if Frieza and Cooler and like the Cold, like their family, had their own TV show.
Okay, hold up. I feel like I should mention I've never watched any Dragon Ball.
Darn it, so never mind. Think of like Zuko. and
Okay.
his family had their own spin-off TV show.
So there was
Kind of,
there
yeah.
was the firebending
Yeah, if there was a
tribe.
whole show based off of the family dynamics of Zuko's family.
Okay, that's interesting. I would watch the shit out of that. Mark
Well,
Hamill.
that's the thing is so like because of this new show that sounds super interesting, we now have to watch all 5 seasons
Oh my
of
god.
this spin-off show. However, I will say it's not bad. It's just it hasn't reached the high points of the Vampire Diaries.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Because it feels like it's like, hey, these are the dynamics that you liked in the Vampire Diaries, but not as good.
Yeah, it's
So
so
like the brother
hard.
dynamic is not as good as the brother dynamic in Vampire Diaries.
Mm. The, it's always tough to like do a sequel to a do a spin-off to a TV show, especially when it's still running, you know?
Yeah, and
Like
they had a great premise and like they moved them to New Orleans, so it's this whole like, different setting, all this stuff, and like, but I think it's just, I don't know what exactly it is, why it's not as good.
was it like with a
It could
really
just be
strong character?
yeah,
Cool.
I think when those characters were introduced in the Vampire Diaries, they were very, very strong and like because they were like originally like the big bads,
Okay.
and then eventually they kind of become their own thing, and maybe that's the thing is that they were more interesting as the villains. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's always one of those things where you kind of have to choose a character that is super interesting if you're going to spin them off. Because like if you think of like successful TV show spin-offs, I'm always thinking of like Angel is a big
Yeah,
huge one, and also Frasier, is another side, like completely different genre, but still like
yeah,
super successful spin-off show where to the point where people don't even know Frasier is a spin-off. I didn't know it was a spin-off until like 4 years ago, I think.
yeah,
And it's usually because you pick a character that everyone like loves, and everyone is like really big fan of. And I don't know, it's kind of you live or die by that character, because like Angel, if you didn't enjoy Angel, you weren't going to go watch Angel the TV show, I don't
yeah,
know.
exactly.
It's interesting. I guess like Vampire Diaries, I'm so like ignorant of it. I don't think we get it syndicated out here really. Whereas like we do get the Flash, we do get Arrow.
Yeah, well, we had it on because we just rewatched it on Netflix.
Yeah. I wonder if it is on Netflix for us, because I know a lot of CW stuff. I know Riverdale is on Netflix over here. That's a huge show over here. Like people love it. But
Oh, people love it here too.
what's funny is that we Archie really isn't a thing in Britain. So
Yeah,
like
I can imagine why that wouldn't.
so for us, like Archie has always been like a murder mystery. There's never been the fun like Betty and Veronica and all that like fun little stuff. Like from the get go in Britain, the perception of Archie is that Riverdale. Like that's what we
It's
think
Twin
of.
Peaks meets.
Which is really funny because like I was telling my friend Tang is a huge Riverdale fan, and I was like, oh, do you know this is based on a comic book? And she's like, oh, what's the comic like? Is it good? And I'm like, well, if you like Riverdale, it's not really anything like the show. So I don't know. It's kind of
Yeah, I would say like read like Afterlife with Archie because that's kind of
didn't
the
they do
same
like a
tone,
really
except that's with
cool?
zombies.
Oh damn! Didn't they do like a really cool like teenage Archie book like way back when? I think we talked about it on the
Yeah, so
Magnify
they're doing
podcast.
one. Well, they're doing one right now. That's
Oh,
Mark. I think Mark Waid's still writing it.
oh, bang it! I like Mark Waid.
It's still going. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, so John, what is
Whose
your?
topic? I was gonna say, did we want to start with mine or yours?
Should we start with mine, because it's probably weaker and it's also the one that I completely forgot that I did.
Okay, so we'll start with yours.
Okay, I was wondering if we could talk about, and we might do a sequel to this if this one isn't as prepared as I thought it was going to be. Favorite fictional siblings in media, from anime to movies to comic books to everything. I think it's a cool, interesting idea of having siblings in a story, because it's a weird dynamic, and a lot of times I think that people get it really wrong by just like
Yeah.
forcing characters to hang out who don't like each other because they're siblings. Because like as someone who has siblings, you don't have to hang out with them if you don't like them.
Yeah,
So characters being related is not a reason for people to hang out with each other. You know, you have
yeah.
to develop that relationship. So, John, do you have any fun siblings we can just bounce back and forth if you'd like?
My first option is the Elric brothers. They
Oh,
just
you
have a
took
great.
mine.
They have the best dynamic. That's why it's the best dynamic. One's
They
really
do.
short, one's really tall. The tall one's the younger one, the shorter one's the older one. It's a great. It's the classic dynamic,
It is great, and they genuinely care for each other as well, which I really like.
and they're also. It's not that individually they're not strong enough characters,
Mm.
but they're two. They have to be together.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the Elric brothers are an interesting dynamic where it's like I would I mean there are points in that story where they're separated and it is still interesting, but their dynamic together is so good. They bounce off each other. I really like that they're able to really in that book nail the idea of kind of those arguments with your siblings that you get sometimes, and believe me, there are real arguments with siblings. These aren't just the only arguments, but sometimes you argue with a sibling, but even during the argument, you know that like it's going to be fine after it. You know that you're not
Yeah,
going to be mad at each other. It's just that happens a lot in Full Metal. I like where it's like they're shouting at each other, or maybe Edward is shouting at Alphonse,
yeah,
but you know that they're not actually like at each other's throats, you know, like they're just
yeah,
so comfortable with each other as brothers that they can like scream at each other and it's fine, you know. It's and I think those two because I have a younger brother who I'm very very close to, and reading Full Metal, was quite there were quite a lot of emotional moments in that book where it's interesting because you get because you get like this weird older brother younger brother thing where you as I grow up and my brother grows up with me, just like Edward experiences in the book, you start to see things in your younger brother that are like better than you. Like he's like doing things that are better, and it's this weird mix of like I feel like I should be jealous of you, but I'm kind of more proud and I'm kind of more happy that you're doing better than me at this certain aspect of
yeah,
life because it's like, and you get that a lot with Edward, and like Edward cares so much about Alphonse and he feels so guilty, but he's still able to like maintain that relationship. Oh fuck, I love so good, such a good choice,
yeah.
such a good.
Do you have another one since I took yours?
No, I feel like I hijacked it back. I
Okay, good.
apologize. Mine first one then. I'll just go to the thematic one, which is Luke and Leia. Now, not so much in the movies. Luke and Leia in the movies are kind of
They don't get a lot of time to be siblings.
no. When they do, I like it. I really, really like it. But again, it's right at the end of the third movie, so
Yeah.
it's not. Obviously, we're
And
gonna.
then Last Jedi, they get some scenes together.
Yes. So I'm more focusing on some extended stuff, but I do love that scene in Return of the Jedi, where he has to reveal it to her, and it's just such a nice like. They just seem more comfortable with each other than they've ever felt in the series. There
Yeah.
was up until then, Luke and Leia. There was always this. Ooh, are they in a? Is it a love triangle situation? And it always felt awkward because he always felt like so young and teenagery, and she was just so strong and such a strong character, and also so obviously like in love with Han Solo. Like
Yeah.
there was never really anyone after watching Empire who felt like she was going to end up with anyone but Han, because those two characters clash in such an interesting way. Like Han and Leia work because they really like. They hate each other just enough to fall in love.
Yeah.
And Luke always felt like a third wheel, but then the twist of them being siblings kind of works because that has always kind of been their relationship. It's just been awkward up until this point and like
Yeah.
weird. Like even when you don't know that they're siblings, it's uncomfortable when they kiss because you're like, no, you guys are like brother and sister, and then it turns out
Yeah.
they are brother and sister. And then in The Last Jedi, it's just such a sweet moment. And it might also be influenced by the fact that obviously Carrie Fisher passed away. But
Yeah.
just a sweet moment when he hugs her, when it's just like we haven't seen each other for years and years and years, and he's just like, he doesn't say anything. It's just like all this baggage is like, I haven't been here. You've been fighting on your own, and also your husband and my best friend died. But without saying anything, he just hugs her, and it's just this really nice moment where he there's nothing he can say. You know, he hasn't
Yeah.
got the time to apologize for everything, and she just forgives him straight away because she's just like, you know, me and you, man, like we're the galaxy's most famous siblings.
Yeah.
But I also really like, for those who know the story Bloodline, which is about Princess Leia after the events of the original trilogy. She talks a lot about Luke, in the sense of this weird like relationship they have, where they were like super, like they didn't know anything about each other, and then they were forced to become really, really close, and then Luke disappeared.
Yeah.
So it's like this really intense sibling relationship where it's based on like, oh, you know, I love Luke, you know, finding out that he's my sibling is great, but also in tandem with that, she finds out that Darth Vader is a real father. And not only the Darth Vader is a real father, but the Bail Organa was not a real father, which she like
Yeah.
loved Bail Organa. So it's this really interesting dynamic where she wants so bad to love Luke, but it's conflicting for her because it then comes with the acceptance of Darth Vader along with it. And I always like that kind of dynamic. So they're probably one of my favorite siblings, if you take into account some of the extra material, which I do because I love Star Wars.
Of course. Canon's what you make it, man.
Yeah, man. What about you? Got any more siblings? Got any cool siblings?
I have one last important one.
Okay.
'Cause it's been on my mind. I can't help it. Vampire Diaries.
Ooh.
The Salvatore brothers, who are, I mean, they are the titular vampires in the Vampire Diaries. I mean, there
Okay.
are plenty of other vampires, but they are like the main force of the show. And they have such a great dynamic. I was making a video. I thought about making a video on it, but I see if I feel like doing all that work. But because the Vampire Diaries is a show about loss.
Yes.
You know, it's a show about how people deal with loss of loved ones, loss of humanity, loss of just all these different types of loss.
Mm.
And that's where the main conflict between these two comes into play, is how they each deal with loss. Stefan, who's the younger brother, he very much internalizes and is very regretful and remorseful, but is also always striving to move forward, to make amends.
Okay.
While Damon is the older brother, he has this recurring line, which is my favorite thing in the show. It is, honestly, my favorite thing in the show. Where he's always having an argument with someone, and he always yells, "I'm selfish." That's his go-to line. He's like, well, guess what? I'm selfish. And it's just the perfect, like, encapsulation of his entire character, because he is angry, he lashes out, like, when they become vampires.
Mm-hmm.
Stefan kind of forces it on his brother Damon.
Okay.
Because he's like, hey, look, like, if we don't do this, you're going to die.
I see.
And so it's like, I feel bad about, he's like, obviously, like, I feel bad about this, but it's obviously, like, you could tell he's like, all right, this is a decision that happened. It's time. We have to move forward with the new normal.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to be alone, which is a very important part.
Mm.
While Damon, on the other hand, says, probably my second favorite line in the series is, I'm going to give you an eternity of torment. Because that's just how he is. He's almost too honest with his emotions.
Yeah.
To where he just can't help himself with just throwing that in your face, throwing his emotions in your face. 9 times out of 10 negative ones.
Mm.
And that's why I think their relationship works so well, is because there is a fundamental difference between these two that always brings them at odds. But it's the bond of brotherhood and family that brings them back together.
Yeah, I like that. I like it when you can put siblings in a situation where they're interesting to play off each other.
Yeah.
Another example, which I thought you were going to mention, honestly, is Sam and Dean. Like,
oh,
possibly the most popular siblings of all time.
That is a really good. That shows how out of the loop I am with Supernatural that I forgot to mention Sam and Dean Winchester when we were talking about siblings.
Yeah, I never watched past I think season 7, so as have
Yeah,
I.
to me, same
But
thing. We stopped.
those two are still like fucking fantastic. Like just
They
the
are.
dynamic together is so, again, not like so at odds that it's annoying, but also not so friendly that it doesn't make sense. Like they're like the perfect example of like brothers who like, they butt heads a lot, but it's like ultimately they always like gonna love each other. Like I think Sam and Dean is so funny. It's one of those things though where I love Dean. I really do. Like Dean is by far my favorite of the brothers, but I don't think he would be half as funny without Sam to play off.
Yeah,
Without the heart of that character. So it is one of those situations where like I can say like Dean is the best character, but I wouldn't want to separate them because of how well they play off each other.
because the only reason Dean works so well is because he has a younger brother to care after.
Yes, 100%, 100%. He might be off the rails if he didn't have Sam.
Yeah, that's like my favorite episodes is like, I mean, there's one early on where they meet like another hunter who's like, he specializes in vampires, whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's like his main, he like kills vampires. And him and Dean really bond because they're both kind of like savage, brutal people who just
Yeah.
like hate demons and all that stuff. And it's like, oh, this is what Dean would be like if Sam wasn't around. This is what he turned into.
Yeah, I love
But he
episodes like
has
that.
Sam. And so Sam like grounds him.
Yeah, I like that. I like it. Also, I feel like we need to mention some siblings who they don't work out because we've been talking about a lot of siblings who like stay together. Thor and
Yeah.
Loki, fantastic dynamic. Like Thor and Loki are great because they don't work.
Yeah.
Like there's that line in Ragnarok, which is really cool, where they're in the lift, and Thor is coming to terms. He's come to terms with the fact that he's just never going to be. They're just never going to be close. Like he's like, I keep trying, and I've realized that like you're going to do you, and I'm going to do me, and we're just never going to be like the brothers that we thought we were going to be. And it's that moment I think where Loki goes, "Oh shit, I fucked up." Like he realizes, and it leads him. I think that scene leads him on his journey to redeeming himself.
Okay, I don't know what was going on with that.
And you're back. Hi, friend.
There
Sorry.
we go.
It's a perfect time to cut out now because, like, we can just be like, "Ooh, Cameron was about to spoil Infinity War, but the recording cut out."
Yeah, good thing. Yes, let us go with that story.
So
Which
anyway,
we did kind of drop, but
let's talk your
Thor and
topic.
Loki are great.
Yes, they are. They're great brothers. They're
Okay.
fantastic brothers.
So you talked about Solo,
Yes, I did.
that you saw Solo, you enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking, they announced that they're doing a Boba Fett movie.
Yes.
So if Kathleen Kennedy
Oof.
got on this Skype call and said, "Hello, howdy, boys. How's it going? Big money cat over here. We just need to churn out some films. We're an empire. We don't care the quality of them. It doesn't matter. We just need Star Wars to be on the brain. We want you to make a Star Wars story movie." What would it be?
I would freak out, honestly, first.
Yeah.
Before anything. I think it would be like not even register that she asked me that first. First I would just be like, "Oh shit, Kathleen Kennedy, you're amazing." And like I would like talk to her a little bit, and I'd be like, what it was like to work with Steven Spielberg and to work with George Lucas and all these movies that you're responsible for, and like what is it like to man Star Wars now, and then she'd be like, "Did you hear what I said?" And then I'd be like, No, I wasn't listening to you. What were you saying? And then I think before anything I would make a request. And I think that I urge all filmmakers who are given this opportunity, if you're listening to this, I don't know why you would be, but if you are, request that your movie come out far away from the last one. Like, I gotta push. One of the biggest things that Solo did that I didn't understand was coming out, like, not even a year away from The Last Jedi. Like, why not just do one every year? Like it just makes so much more sense. And I get they're trying to be the new
I don't
Marvel.
know why.
I get that they're trying to be the Marvel where they can just but Marvel, doesn't have to be the same genre. Marvel can be a Western, and then a sci-fi, and then a grounded, realistic movie. But with Star Wars, you're always stuck at that science fantasy. You can't do anything but science fantasy. You can do other genres with that, but you're stuck with that. So don't bang us over the head with the same fucking franchise again.
Seriously.
Again. So I would be like, all right, my movie has to come out a year after the last Star Wars movie.
Yeah, it could be a year after mine.
Okay, yeah, let's do it that. You get yours, and then I'll get mine a year later. We'll both come out over Christmas, because I love Star Wars movies coming out of Christmas. It's my favorite thing. Now, here's the thing. It's the decisions, John. It's the decisions. The like, where do you go? Where do you set it? You know, do you care about newcomers? Do you want your movie to bring in new fans of Star Wars, or are you going to cater to all the people who love Star Wars? You know, it's tough.
Wow, you are thinking really deep about this.
I think it comes down to the idea of, like, you know, where in the universe that you're going to set it. So if you'll indulge me, I would love to hear yours, because I would love to know. Because I'm going to tell you all of mine, but I'm only going to go deep on one of mine. But I'll base which one on the one you tell, because
Okay, yeah, because I only have one, because I am very public. I don't know the most about Star Wars.
Which is completely fine.
I'm not, like, I don't know a lot about it. I know, like, the movies, I know certain aspects of the expanded universe.
Yeah.
So, alright.
I feel like music is going to play.
You know, this lag is telling us.
Oh, I see. It's lag. I thought you were just leaving a dramatic pause.
No, I got confused because I heard, like, some crackle and stuff. So, it was good, though. I should have kept it. Should have rolled with it.
I was, like, waiting for a drum roll, and then... Oh, my God, the lag. Okay, John.
Outposts.
John, I'm losing you.
Okay, are we back?
Friend, hi.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know what is up with
All
this
right.
today.
Okay, let's just try a little bit of test. I'm gonna say star, and you say wars. Star.
Wars.
Okay, we're good. All right, 3, 2, 1, John, go.
Okay, so we're out on this mining colony in bumfuck nowhere, right?
Nice.
You got all these poor miners, you know,
Aw.
and you have these Empire troops here.
Ooh, the Empire.
Well, yeah, Empire troops. Yeah, they'd be called that during the time frame. But they're not exactly acting like the Empire you're used to. They're acting more like a gang.
Ooh.
They're loud, they're angry, they're obnoxious. They don't seem as prim and proper as you're used to seeing.
They're not Imperials.
Yes. You realize that this is an empire that has been given a lot of leeway. Their only job is to just stay here and make sure that this thing is pumping out whatever it's making. That these people are doing their job. They're not really fighting rebels. They're just there to make sure that they keep on sending out shipments.
Cool.
So they're given a lot of leeway. So they act more like a gang from, like, an old Kurosawa film.
Nice.
You know, they're just, like, belligerent and drunk and angry, and their suits are kind of, like, dirty, and, like, their armor's, like, not really kept up to snuff.
I like it. They've got like little custom pieces that they've put on.
Yeah.
Like, no one's gonna check anyway.
They're like, nobody's coming all the way out here. Like, nobody cares. So they kind of have it made. So we follow this little girl.
Okay.
She, you know, we see a little bit of her daily life. We see a little bit of the horrors and the oppression that this town is under. So she's able to kind of, like, escape through under, like, the guards' noses, you know, and she goes out.
Okay.
She travels. We see her going through these wide wildernesses, whatever. She goes to this giant lake. Okay, and there's this giant, like, there's a sea monster in the middle of the lake with a little shack on top of it.
On top of the sea monster?
On top of the sea monster.
Oh, wow, okay.
So she goes out to the shack, whatever, you know, she goes up, she knocks on the door, and it slowly opens, and we see a figure. And he starts to close the door, and she's like, "Hey, I'm sorry. Look, I know, you know, we're not supposed to bother you, but we really need you. You used to be you were there. You were there when it all happened. When, everything fell. Like they tell stories about you, and I don't know exactly what happened, and not everyone knows what happened, but I've heard stories about you, and you're a hero. So could you help us?
Okay.
And so we get a beat. I have to keep myself together for this. And and then he says, Misa just wants to be left alone. Old man Jar Jar Binks. He decides to come back with the girl. Okay, so the main reasoning, besides that punchline, which I think is a great punchline, the main reasoning I attached myself to this weird story of an older Jar Jar Binks who's kind of become like a hermit.
Okay.
It's because he was very close to Padme. They're like best friends.
Yeah.
He was very close to, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon and Anakin. And so this idea of what do you do when you're the friend in the group who is the funny guy, but people also kind of only just barely tolerate you?
Okay.
What does that person do when everyone around him dies and falls apart and everything falls apart? What is a guy whose only worth is the people he's surrounded by? What does that person do?
Oh my God. That is...
Yeah, so he's in a hut, he's by himself. I like to imagine that we get a scene of he has a holograms of them that he just replays conversations with them.
Oh, so he's got a holocron of Annie, his training, Jedi training.
Yeah, and a Padme and them just I'd like to do a lot of time with Padme because I feel like they were very close.
I mean, they were the best friends. She got him his job at the council,
Yeah. And then obviously Jar Jar and the Jar Jar and the miners. I like to imagine it's this eclectic group of weirdos.
Okay.
And I want to play with the physical comedy aspect of he's not going up against an army. He's going to go up against these soldiers who have been lazy and haven't really been fully training, and they're not the full power of the Empire.
They've never had to fight in a war.
Exactly. And it's not
he is a seasoned veteran.
Oh, no. That's the great thing about it, is that he's still going to win and solve problems the way that Jar Jar solves problems. So he's this old man who's still fumbling with things, and somehow things are just working out in his favor. But it's about what happens when that person who's, their worth is decided by the people they're around, loses all the people they're around. It's about him finding a new weird family.
I really like that. I really like that aspect of it, of the sense that he needs, without the people to entertain and make laugh, he's no one.
Yeah.
Because the whole reason he was so wacky and funny is because of the people who loved him and loved that.
And then even if you think not to give Jar Jar too much depth then, but the Gungans hated him.
Yeah.
So this is the first group of people that accepted him and wanted him around and cared about him, and then they all died or turned evil.
They die, they turn evil, and then they leave as well. Obi-Wan doesn't give a second thought to Jar Jar. He's fuck off. He just leaves.
Yeah.
He could have given Jar Jar a heads up as to what happened, but as far as Jar Jar knows, Annie's dead. He's not. Yeah. He doesn't know that he's Darth Vader. Padme's dead.
He'll find out that Padme's dead through the grapevine.
Yeah, and he might have known that she was pregnant, and he doesn't know what happened to them. It's tragic. It's absolutely tragic. So what happens then? What happens with this gang of stormtroopers and Jar Jar Binks and the little girl?
I like to imagine that they all win. Whatever winning means. Maybe it means that the Empire troops leave and go and come back with a bigger ship and fuck everything up. Or that means that they maybe come to some sort of like compromise.
Uh, if I were to do a little bit of interjecting here, this is
Yeah,
obviously your story, but I think it would be interesting in this idea because there's this theme running with the Star Wars stories, which I really like, where each of them shows the beginning of a rebel faction.
yeah,
So in Rogue One, we see the beginnings of Saw Gerrera's rebel faction, but we also see the beginnings of the Rebel Alliance as well. Like when they all come together for the first time to attack Scarif, and in Solo, I don't want to spoil it, but there's a hint towards another rebel faction, and I like the idea that we're always building and we're seeing like where the rebellion came from, because it wasn't like one force; it was a bunch of different other forces that all started on different planets and came together. So I like the idea that Jar Jar starts his own rebel faction by
yeah.
accident, and then they eventually will join up. Obviously, you won't see this in the movie, or maybe you do, but they, after the events of the movie, they join up and they become part of the bigger rebel
Yeah.
alliance.
Maybe like the ending of the movie is like a faction of rebels, whatever, coming to that planet and like running in, or like them just kind of accidentally running into each other and being like, oh, hey, we just beat up all these Imperial soldiers. And they're like, oh, we're coming here to help you guys, help to like liberate this
Yeah.
town
Dude,
that we knew was under control of the Empire.
how dope would it be that if they overpower the stormtroopers now, and there's this really nice celebration
Yeah.
end, and they radio, and they're like, anyone who can give us help. We know the Empire aren't going to be happy with us after the news gets back to them that we took their base back, and then you just like this the Tavern 4, which is that rebel ship you see a lot. It's the one at the beginning of A New Hope. It's also the one at the end of Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith. It's like that triangle-looking ship. So that lands on the planet, and the doors open, the bay doors open, and down walks Leia, and she's like, "Hi, I'm from the Rebel
Ah,
Alliance. I'm here to help you." And then like Jar Jar like clocks her, and he's like, "I know you from somewhere." Like, how
yeah.
sweet would that be?
That'd be adorable. But yeah, so that's my the most John Johnson thing ever.
I love that. I really like that. I really like that idea. Would you like me to take a second before telling you my idea to tell you what actually happens to Jar Jar in canon?
I was curious because I was like, I have no idea what happens to Jar Jar in canon, and I'm not going to do research.
So Jar Jar is an interesting character because, ever since the backlash against him, there's always been that funny like joke going around that he dies on Alderaan. It's like, oh, it'd be funny if he died on Alderaan because everyone hates him. But when Disney took Star Wars, they really wanted to take care to make sure that every character that wasn't going to get a movie, we know what kind of what their deal was, And if
Yeah.
I don't know why they did this, but it was just kind of a nice send off to a lot of characters that were kind of in the background a lot. And they did this through 2 series. One of them was called From a Certain Point of View, which is an interesting series, which basically tells the events of A New Hope through the point of view of none of the main characters. So it keeps skipping to all these different characters. It starts as a stormtrooper who's boarding the Tavern 4 right at the beginning, and then it cuts to like the droid that breaks that they're gonna buy, but then instead they buy R2D2.
Oh yeah.
It's you get his perspective as well, and he breaks on purpose because R2D2's pleading with him. R2D2's like, please, you gotta let me be adopted by a family. I'm on an important mission, and this other droid is just like, all right, well, I guess I'll pretend to break so that they adopt you instead. But they also did it through another series called Aftermath, which is a fantastic. If anyone is like, I want to start, the extended universe, but I don't know where to start with Aftermath. It is a 3-part series, and it basically tells the story of this group of misfits and how they end up ending the war against the Empire after the Emperor is dead. So after the Emperor is dead, there's still a big war going on, and this group of misfits somehow end up ending the war. It's really cool. But what they do is it's divided into chapters, and each chapter is the main story, and then it'll tell a little side story, and then it'll tell the main story and tell a little side story and then tell a main story. And these little side stories are always little short stories about little characters that you've seen. And in one of the Aftermath books, there is this fantastic story where we cut to Naboo. And this is after the events of Return of the Jedi now. So the Death Star has exploded, the Empire is on its last legs, the Emperor is dead. And we cut to Naboo, and it's this crazy, like, mad dash where, like, Naboo is having this surge of refugees coming to the planet because Alderaan and a lot of other planets have been ravaged by the Empire, but Naboo has finally, because the Emperor is dead, they've opened up and they've said we'll help a bunch of people. So you get a bunch of refugees coming, and along with those refugees, you get a lot of kids who have like not lost their parents, like kids whose parents were rebels or were just like, you know, caught in the crossfire and stuff. And all these refugees are just on Naboo, and they're just like, a lot of them are homeless and stuff. And there's this one kid who is really struggling to like adjust to the situation, and he comes across this street performer, and the street performer is this like is like dancing, and all the kids love him, and they're all like, all these kids are gathered around the street performer, and they're all like clapping, and they're all in love with him, and they're all laughing and stuff. But then the kids who have parents, the parents are running up and quickly taking them away, and the kids don't understand. They're like, why won't you let me, you know, enjoy this street performer? And it turns out that the street performer ends up being Jar Jar Binks. And what is happening is everyone, all the adults on Naboo, hate Jar Jar Binks because they all know that he is responsible, if you remember, for electing the Emperor. Way back in Revenge of the Sith, the Empire... the Emperor is needs to be voted in to become the Emperor. He's the Supreme Chancellor, but he needs to be given the authority to become the Emperor. And one of the deciding factors goes down to Jar Jar Binks because he is obviously on the council, and he's like, he doesn't understand what's going on, so he gives him the supreme control, and it leads to the Emperor becoming in power, and it leads to the Empire becoming this big, you know, war machine. So what happens is you create this dynamic where all these kids on Naboo love Jar Jar Binks, and they all like really like him, but all the adults hate him, and it's paralleling the real life like perception of Jar Jar Binks, where when those movies came out, all the kids loved Jar Jar Binks, and all the adults who loved Star Wars hated Jar Jar Binks. And there's this kid who hasn't got a parent, and he talks to Jar Jar Binks, and Jar Jar Binks cheers him up, and they have this really nice conversation. I can't get into it because it's like super long, but they have this nice conversation about, you know, he's like asking Jar Jar, and Jar Jar's just talking about, well, it's like, as long as people, you know, laugh at me, and as long as I'm making people smile, then, you know, I'm making up for what I did. And then basically what happens is this kid asks Jar Jar if he can like become his friend, and Jar Jar essentially adopts the kid, and they like stick together, and he protects him because the kid doesn't have any parents. And it's this really nice scene where you go, oh shit, dude, Jar Jar, like, he's suffering for what he did, but like he kind of gets through it, and it's really nice. But I like that, like, your story parallels that in certain ways, where it's talking about, you like, what do you do where, like, you know, everyone he knows is dead, so he just becomes a street performer, and he's like essentially a hermit.
That's good. I was assuming it was something way like depressing and horrible.
I liked it. A lot of people didn't like how he kind of got, you know, he got a nice happy ending, but I don't know. I liked how it kind of played with the, you know, the perception of Jar Jar in the real world, almost echoed it in the Star Wars world.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think about this a lot. I think about Star Wars movies a lot. I think about what would do well and what I would like to see. And I've decided I'm just gonna talk about like a movie that I would really like to see. I don't know if it would do well. I don't know if it would be a super popular movie, but I think that Star Wars has a lot of potential, and it's kind of divided into a lot of different sections, like the Star Wars universe. You've got like the Jedi and stuff. You got this, you know, the Sith versus the Jedi, that whole aspect of it, the spiritual side. You've also got the Empire versus the Rebels. That's a big side of it. You know, it's like war and like oppression and stuff like that. You've got like the the pilots, the smugglers and stuff like that with Han Solo. But a big thing that I don't think we've touched on a lot is the dark side, the scum and villainy. Like the bounty hunters and the people who take advantage of wartime and stuff. And that's definitely in the movies. It's a little bit in Solo, but not so much. And I really want there to be a bounty hunter movie. And obviously we're getting the Boba Fett movie, but I'm gonna pretend that that's not happening. Because I really want to make a movie about the bounty hunters in more of a group setting, like a Rogue One almost for bounty hunters. Because we got the Rogue One for the good guys. I want to get the Rogue One for the bad guys. I want to get the bounty hunters Rogue One. And I thought a fun thing to do would be: have you seen the episode of The Simpsons with Grandpa and his what are they called? The silverfish, the strong.
I have not.
Damn it!
Not a big Simpsons guy.
Okay, so there's this idea in The Simpsons. The Grandpa Simpson was back in the war. You know what? I'll just explain my movie. There's no point explaining the analogy. So the idea is that there's this long-running like storytelling device in a lot of things, like The Simpsons and other things, where there's a pact, right? A death pact. So the idea is that a group of people have access to a treasure or a secret or something, and the last person alive is allowed to claim it. But until, while there are still people alive, you can't claim it. You have to wait until there's one person left. And I want to do that with a group of bounty hunters. I think it would be really fun to have a group of bounty hunters that used to work together, and then in their later years. So what I want to do is start the movie with like a flashback scene. It wouldn't be a flashback because it would be the beginning of the movie, but I want to start the movie with these young spry bounty hunters, a little bit of time before New Hope. So it's like the perfect time to be a bounty hunter because war is ravaging, the Empire is on top, and they're hiring bounty hunters left and right to like take out these rebel factions and to ransack people and stuff. And you have like this group. So we've got Boba Fett, obviously, because he's like the biggest bounty hunter. You've got Bosk, who's my favorite bounty hunter. I love Bosk. I think Bosk would be a really fun kind of Chewie kind of character, like an evil version of Chewie, where he doesn't say much and like he doesn't speak a lot of English, but he's like super strong and he's kind of comedic in that sense. We've got Dengar, who is like a wisecracking bounty hunter. He's a lot less serious than Boba Fett is. He enjoys his job a lot. And then I don't know about I kind of wanted to use like a new character for the fourth character. I think it would be fun to have like a brand new bounty hunter character, but I also don't know if that would take away from the spotlight from the others, because I want it to be about all of them. I don't want it to just be about this new character. So let's just say it's a new bounty hunter character, and his deal is he's a bit more of like a newbie, like he's kind of like a new guy. He's not as he's like Dengar's he's like his what you call it, protege,
Yeah.
I was going to make it a character, Jaz Amari, who's from the extended universe. I really like her, but she's way too confident. I want this character to be quite innocent. Like, even though he's a bounty hunter, he's a bit more innocent. So we have them. They're all like working together, and they're all like, we get a montage of them doing a bunch of jobs, and they're clearly pretty tight, all these like bounty hunters. And then they settle on, at the end of the like montage, they settle on this massive score. And they're like, wow, this is awesome. And they go, right, what we should do? This should be our retirement fund. We should all like hide it away, not tell anyone else, where it is. And we should have it so that it'll only open if all four of us agree to open it. So either we all open it when we all retire, or, when all of us are dead, the person who's left can collect all the fragments of the keys and stuff and can come unlock it. So the idea is that they all need to agree to open this safe, or they need to, kill each other, which is the darker side of it, but that's why they're bounty hunters. So you have this like pact between these four bounty hunters. I think it would be really fun to open it up, kind of like X-Men Origins style, where it's like a super fun, happy beginning, where it's like super uber violent. Maybe not super violent, but like it's like what they're doing isn't cool. Like they're doing terrible things, but they're like really enjoying each other's company and they're really friendly and they're all happy and they're doing these jobs. Like Boba Fett is like he's a bit of a straight man. Bosk is running in and he's picking people up and throwing them, and like Dengar's cracking jokes and stuff. So it's this like fun, enjoyable romp, for bounty hunters. And then like it hard cuts after they get this big score. And like the fun music stops. And it's just sad. And you just see the three of them, Bosk, Dengar, and this other bounty hunter. And they're just like watching the Holo News, which I assume is the Star Wars version of the news. They're watching the Holo News, and it's just... it's like, like long time, infamous bounty hunter Boba Fett killed, and you just see the footage, like on the Holo News of Boba Fett being like his jetpack gets sliced by Luke Skywalker. He flies through the air, and then he goes into the Sarlacc pit. And it's just like the sadness. It's just like up until this point, it's super fun, and then it's just like sad, and you're just like, oh man. And they're all like, I don't know what to do now. Like we can't keep going, so they all part ways. They all completely part ways, and then they're not together. And then it cuts to like 5 years later, and I thought it'd be cool if like 5 years later, we see like Dengar's on like a job with a bunch of new people that you've never met before. And he's just on this job, and like his ship gets attacked by like this huge ship, and then it's like this crazy action sequence where his ship is getting attacked, and all his new crewmates are all dying, and this one crewmate is just like, what's going on? What, who did we piss off? And then like someone walks onto the deck of the ship. You don't see who it is, and then Dengar looks up, and he's like got fear in his eyes. He's like, oh my god! And then like he just gets killed, and then before he gets killed, he like tells his shipmate, he's like, you gotta go tell Bosk, and like runs off. And then the idea is the rest of the movie is Bosk finds this other bounty hunter that they were part of, and they're trying to find out who killed Dengar, and it's this whole romp. And again, I'm missing out big chunks of the movie because I haven't figured out a lot of it. But cut to the third act. I think everyone knows where this is going. It's not a super original idea, but I think it'll be fun. So you get to the third act. Bosk and this other bounty hunter, they've gotten this crew together, so they've almost reformed the crew with new members. I've got a cool like ideas for like these members that could join, like Jazamari I mentioned, she could like join later, and there's also a character called Sinji Rathfilis. Really awesome character. He's like, I think he's the only gay man in like the Star Wars canon right now. He's fantastic. If you read Aftermath, he's so good. But he's an ex-Imperial officer who decides to become a bounty hunter because he's just obsessed with Jazz. Like Jazamari is this bounty hunter who's the coolest, and he's like infatuated, not like in a romantic way because he's gay, but he's infatuated with her, and like he's starstruck by her, and he's like, you're the best. So he becomes a bounty hunter because he's basically gets a best friend who's a bounty hunter. And so Bosk and this new bounty hunter that I made up have gotten this crew together. They're trying to find out who's doing it, and then they've come across the ship. And then they get on the ship and they're like, right, we're going to do this. And it turns out that it's Boba Fett, and like he lived, and he's like angry at them for not like being with him and saving him when he like almost died, or like looking for him or coming to the Sarlacc pit. He like crawled his way out, and he's like, I'm going to kill him and I'm going to take the treasure. And then now Boba Fett has got like this huge like army of Mandalorians now, and he's got like his whole crew. And it's just like this movie. I just wanted this like fun movie where it's just like super cheesy, super fun, and it's just like this crazy, like almost Western revenge, crazy traitorous story about bounty hunters, and you never see any good guys. The whole movie's just filled to the brim with this like bounty hunter scum and villainy aspect. And I just thought it would be a fun like diversion from the Star Wars movies we've been getting, where it always turns out that the good guys win at the end. There's not really the option for the good guys to win. It's just bad guys versus bad guys. So I don't know. That was just kind of my fun idea for a Bosk and Dengar kind of bounty hunter movie.
Yeah, I like that a lot because it gives like annoying Star Wars fans what they want, which is like, oh my God, Boba Fett's like the greatest thing ever. Like, how could you leave him off? Um, but then you also like, because I mean, Star Wars is famous for taking, putting a Star Wars twist on famous like movies
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even the original Star Wars is just a remake, but in
of
space.
like, yeah, like Hidden Fortress, I think
Yeah,
was a Kurosawa film that
yeah,
inspired Star Wars, the original, or New Hope. And so it'd be interesting to take like that old Western style movie of like, this gang of outlaws who find the score and they're like, that like the Death Pact
yeah,
that you're,
yeah.
and doing it just with Star Wars. So that was like mine was like kind of I forget what it's called, like Yojimbo, I believe was the movie.
Okay, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
with Jar Jar, like kind of.
yeah,
Uh,
100%.
where you get to like the guy who doesn't really who want to be a part of things, who has to kind of like get into the situation anyway. So it's like it's really fun. And then obviously like the bounty hunters is an aspect of
Yeah,
Star Wars that people always want more of.
I think it's one of those things where Star Wars is kind of a great way to, like you said, almost remake classic stories in a fun way. And I think the fun of Star Wars sometimes comes from the characters more than it does the story. Like Force Awakens is my favorite Star Wars movie, but it's not because of the original plot, because the original plot isn't original. It's based on the original Star Wars movie, which itself is based on the Kurosawa movie. So, like, the plot is never really the thing about Star Wars. It's more, how do you integrate these fun characters into, a plot? And how do you make them larger than life? And I think that having this fun, romp through space could be an interesting expansion to... Because like, Bosk is such a weird character because he shows up in one scene of Empire Strikes Back, and all of a sudden he's like, everyone loves him, including myself. I'm not like judging
Yeah,
people because I love Bosk too. He's just so bizarre. The costume design is so good in Star Wars that they can show a character for a scene, and all of a sudden people go, I want to know everything about him. Like,
yeah. There's I saw this thing on Tumblr, of course,
mm-hmm.
which is one of my favorite headcanons, which is, do you remember in Clone Wars, the
Yes,
movie,
the movie.
that
Yes.
the bounty hunter in the beginning
Oh yeah,
was
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
kill Padme?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's this headcanon that her and Django were best friends, and
Oh,
that she was
okay.
a shapeshifter and she never actually died. And then eventually the Boba Fett that falls into the Sarlacc pit is that bounty hunter because she's just super clumsy and like really kind of like a shitty at her job. And so she decides to like one time she's like, oh hey, like I'm gonna be Boba or whatever, or like she's like raises Boba or whatever after Django dies, and like they do this thing where it's like, hey Boba, you go do this thing and I'll go do this dumb thing for Jabba, whatever. Like I'll watch over
Yeah.
Han's body, whatever. And then like she just completely fails and like falls into the Sarlacc pit basically and dies.
I like that. I always like. I mean, it's fun. I love the bounty hunter aspect of Star Wars. It's actually canon that after Django dies, Dengar kind of adopts Boba and raises him to be a bounty hunter, which could be a fun aspect to my story. But it is canon because Dengar like raises Boba, and in the TV show, the Clone Wars TV show, Boba's in it as a kid, and Dengar's there as like a young man. And then eventually Boba comes across Bosk as well, and so they do know each other in canon. I just thought it'd be fun to kind of find a story for them all, because I just think it's a fun, again, it is just the larger than life characters. I mean, if you look at like Bosk is like a fun idea because he's such a weird like creature. The people make fun of him because he's the only character in Star Wars who doesn't wear shoes. It's like a long running joke for some reason, because the first time you see Bosk, there's an Imperial soldier who's like nervously looking up, and the camera pans and we see these big lizard feet, and then it pans up and you see Bosk and he's looking down at this guy, and every other character in Star Wars has always got shoes on. And the idea is that even his race, the Trandoshans, so Bosk is a Trandoshan, they all wear shoes, but Bosk chooses not to. I like that idea. But like Dengar is just a guy with towels wrapped around his head. Like that's
Yeah.
the extent of his character. So I don't know. Giving a bit more life to these characters always makes me makes me happy, and it's why I enjoy
Yeah.
the comics so much. I like Captain Phasma in the Phasma book, and the Phasma comic is way more interesting than Captain Phasma in the movies.
Yeah. You mean the 5 total minutes between
Oh
two
my
movies of
god!
screen
I
time?
thought they were going to redeem her in the second one, and then she just
Yeah.
dies.
Yeah,
Spoilers.
that was rough.
Well, I've enjoyed this episode, John. I've had a really good time.
Even though the technical hiccups aside.
Yeah, I'm going to see if I can cut around those, so we don't deny the audience too much. But it's been a bit of a late one for me, but a good enjoyment. And we've talked about some fun things. I feel like we stayed on theme as well. Maybe I could call this episode Star Wars.
Yeah. Just Star Wars.
Thanks so much for joining me, John. If people want to find you, they can find you on Twitter mainly, really, other than this channel.
Yeah, basically at John Johnsick on the Twitter. Yeah, and then basically Tumblr is Sickly Geek if you want to just see me reblog a whole bunch of like fun, weird stuff.
Mm. And it'll be a fun thing because you'll see him reblog something and then he'll mention it later on the podcast.
Yeah. So you'll be one step ahead.
Yeah. Obviously, you can find me on Twitter as well at Cameron P. Morris, and there is a bunch of stuff I'm doing. But if you stick on Wi-Fi Friends, I'm sure you'll find out and you'll see some of the best stuff because we upload videos to this channel as well. If you were to wear some fun videos, I made a documentary about my friend Jack. That was weird.
It was very interesting. Me and my wife watched it last night, and we were just like, I was laughing because I was like, having met Jack and talked to Jack, I know this wasn't planned.
Yeah, he didn't know
I
he was
know
gonna
none
record
of
it.
this was like scripted or whatever. It was just like off the top of the head.
So he didn't know. I didn't trick him. He just didn't know that the camera was recording audio because the background of that video was I was taking video of the beach. Me and him were just hanging out taking videos of the beach, and he didn't realize that it was also recording audio. He thought it was just video. So I put it down in front of him, and I was like, "Oh, this would be fun if I film you." And then he just started going, and I was like, "Dude, I'm using this. This is amazing."
Yeah. Oh, it was great.
Yeah, so thanks for listening to the podcast, and we'll check you guys in the next one.
Yeah.